Hello there. You're welcome. My name is Yudi, and this is the Yudi Factor, a program that understands that knowledge is power. And therefore, week after week, we discuss issues, and we empower you with information to enable you make informed choices, especially when you factor in something you heard on the Yudi Factor into your situation. Today, we're going to be talking on leadership. And once again, I have Dr. Ken Onyalikpe, Group Chief Operating Officer inside Group Troika Holdings, to empower us with information on leadership. Our youths need to hear this. Everybody needs to hear this because I believe we have leadership problem in this country. So with this, just watch. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. Dr. Ken, thank you once again for coming to add value.
Thanks for inviting me again.
To our program. Thank
pleasure.
you very much. Yes. What is leadership? What is the problem of leadership? What is, our youths, are they ready for leadership? What is it about leadership, being a leader, that we should know? What does it take?
Well, the invitation excited me because if there is one product that is in deficit in Nigeria, you can rightly say that leadership would be that product. Yes. We have every other thing in abundance, natural resources, but leadership is everything. So when the invitation was sent across, it made a lot of sense to me to come and talk about leadership. Leadership, whether you're leading an organization, whether you're leading a family, whether you're leading a state, the principles of leadership are the same. It is the application that will differ depending on what the challenges are and what the composition of the task is. The ingredients of leadership are twofold. There is the A part of it which will require that you have technical skills, you have competence, you have strong analytical mindset to be able to dissect problems and then profile solutions. In fact, that aspect of qualities required for leadership will help you probably engage your resources well, because you will need to move from, let's say, hindsight to the present, which is insight, and then begin to have a peep into foresight. So that is very key. But if you ask me, what percentage would that constitute in the whole composition of what you require to be leader? I would say maybe 30, 40%. That is not all. That you are competent, that you are smart. Yes, it's very important, but it's nowhere near what all you require for leadership. There are the soft issues, which I think concentration and emphasis should be laid on. And
what are those issues?
Now, those soft issues are issues surrounding self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. These are the soft issues. And if you can master these soft issues, then you are well on your way to becoming an outstanding leader. If you don't, you may be just a regular leader, a lot of which we have in these parts of the world. But when you say self-awareness, it means that you have to identify yourself. You have ability to do self-assessment. What are those weaknesses you have? What are those strengths? How do you manage those weaknesses and strengths? That is, you are self-aware, you know.
You know you.
You know you. Self-regulation means that you are able to manage and control those disruptive impulses and moods that will help you imagine and describe what trustworthiness is, what integrity is, and then what things like confidence is. Then going beyond that, you require motivation, because what does motivation give you? It makes you celebrate success for the sake of it. If you are not the type that celebrates success for the sake of it, then you'll be motivated enough to continue to deliver success with ruthless consistency, because it becomes your meal and the way of life. Empathy is, of course, the ability to understand your surroundings, take into consideration other people's feelings. It could be their differences, and then harness that to an advantage. While social skills is so important, because you will need to communicate, you need to engage, you need to build wide network and tap into it, and then attract or keep resources that will help you achieve set goals.
Take, for instance, somebody listening says, look, I don't have all this. But people look at me and they say, I could be a leader.
You can't. You can't substitute this at all.
No, what I'm saying, I'm coming. And the person says, how do I go about all this?
You start grooming it from when you are in the secondary school, from college. It's not something you wake up at 40, you begin to imagine that you can develop. And no, people are not really born leaders. The traits and attributes will be there, but you need to consciously build it. In fact, in proper societies, you would know who a leader. There is hardly any prime minister in the UK that was not thrust into leadership right from his A-levels. You will see the tendency. He would have done community job. He would have done things amongst his peer groups, and then he would have been put through in a well-articulated manner to deal with these soft issues that I have mentioned about. But there are other critical leadership skills that are required, and I'm talking about things like strategic visioning. You know, how can you be a leader and you're not strategic and you don't understand what visioning is? So where are you leading your people to? At least if you cannot lead them very far, then make sure you don't lead them astray. So you need strategic vision. Then you need execution. You know, leaders make things happen. You know, leaders are not supposed to be making things. They make things happen. There's a difference between that. If you are making things, you're a manager. So somebody has made that, and then you manage it. It's like a ship. You know, the turbines will have to run, the boilers will have to run, and that ship will keep moving. So the man who does that is not a leader. He's a manager. The leader is the person who has the map and points and say, this is the direction the ship is going. So a lot of people confuse that when they do things well at their managerial levels. They say they are leaders. They're not leaders. They are managers. Then, of course, you need to engage. The way you communicate is important. It's very important. I hate to see and hear when people say, you know what, the man is taciturn. You know, he doesn't talk much, but he has other attributes. Then why did you come out to lead? There are people who are competent, ready to work, ready to articulate, brilliant, and yet can communicate. Then let the person lead. If you cannot communicate, you cannot lead. Because how do you inspire people? How do you wake up their consciousness? So as you lead, that is where you write. As you lead, that's the way you speak. You must be coherent. You must have basic, broad cerebral bandwidth that will carry levels of communication that can inspire people and fall. Because you are a shepherd. You are a shepherd of men. So you cannot do without communication. You have to be flexible. Leadership does not mean that you know it all. You must self-develop, and then you must know when to say, you know what, I was wrong here. I need to re-strategize, and you move back, and then you take a bite at it, and then take another course. So flexibility is very key. Then you must be aware. It's very important that the leader is aware of what is in the surroundings, especially these days that we are talking about a global world. We are talking about a world that is with freedom, the global that have global sentiment. So you cannot be indifferent about what is happening in your surroundings or even far away. Because if you are, the people you lead may be connected to it and there be strong dissonance. Then you must be politically, you must have very strong political judgment. Political judgment means that it doesn't matter what the quality of advice comes. It may have economic value, it may have social value, but what is the political angle to it? You must have strong political judgment, and those political judgment must not be riding on the whims and caprices and the emotions around religion, around ethnicity, around tribe. No. That is very mundane, and unfortunately, that's where we still are. But I find that very rural.
Hold the thought. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are talking leadership, and my guest is still Dr. Ken Onyalipe, the Group Chief Operating Officer inside Group Troika Holdings. He's empowering us with information on leadership. Yes, Dr. Ken, when you were talking, you talked about like abroad, where people are groomed from maybe A-levels. You understand? Where there's no tribalism, you don't need a godfather, no nepotism, no favoritism, no. But all those problems are situated here in Nigeria. So, where do we go?
Yeah,
how do we do it?
How we do it is that we can't afford any further pessimism. There's too much pessimism out there, and it's deliberately being infused so that we have that conversation and confuse us and sap our energy that would have given us a railroad into constructive conversation. Nigeria needs a conversation because look at the contradiction. In the private sector, we have produced world-class leaders who can match anybody around the world, and these are Nigerians. In fact, most of them were not only born here, they were groomed here. Yes, they may have had a couple of stints in managerial development overseas, but when they come back here, they settle down and do the right things. And we have Nigerians in diaspora. As we speak, the guy who manages Gatwick, I hear, is a Nigerian. So what the heck are we talking about? We have the competence, we have the resource. The environment is not an accident. I think it was a composition that was hardly put together. And I don't think that the objective of that put together was very sincere. At some point, we'll have to sit together and have a conversation to say what we have, this contraption we have, where everybody is like piece of graveyard. That it looks quiet, but nobody is happy. You know, when you go to a graveyard, it's quiet, but nobody is happy. You know, so we have to have a conversation. So if we can do it in the private sector, we can replicate it in the public sector. And by the way, when you talk about people who lead and bring in nepotism, tribalism as a parameter for leadership, they are not stupid. Even their champions are well educated and they are good leaders, but you can lead for good or for bad. So they lead us for bad. They don't lead for good. If they decisively decide that, okay, we'll have a conversation and we are going to lead for good, then they will bring men of gravitas, which we have in abundance, and then bring the policies, and then there'll be a very sincere conversation of where are we going, how do we want to go there, and how do we need to engage our resources.
Our youths, let's take a look at our youths. I read where some of them say Gowon was head of state at 32.
Yeah.
This one was governor at 26.
Yeah.
This one was this is 33. Too young to rule, not too young to rule. The way you see our youths, are they ready?
No. You see, you didn't even finish your question.
Let me finish.
Before I said no. It's not just wishing it or comparing generations. You know, the time you had those names you mentioned that were 29, 30, Nigeria was still very mundane, very rural. Things like building up electricity, things like building roads would have been an achievement. Today, anywhere in the world, building roads
it's not an achievement.
It's not an achievement. So we need more sophistication in terms of management, in terms of leadership. Now, we are talking about a kind of capability and competence that will deliver renaissance, not just change, because you need renaissance of creativity, renaissance of innovation, artistic excellence, and enterprise. So you ask a 29-year-old Nigerian, does he understand what that means? It doesn't matter how angry he is, you don't have it, even if you are sufficiently angry, because it needs to be groomed and you can't buy it. You begin to talk, how have we evolved over the years in terms of our culture, in terms of our value, and how we understand merit. These people, are they products of merit? I mean, the current generation. So if you're not a product of merit and you're not a product of sequence, how can you articulate leadership? So I'm not saying that all of them cannot, but there are pockets of them who can, who have consciously positioned themselves to be different from others. But that argument does not fly with me at all. If you must lead, you must show evidence of what you've done before. It's not just wishful thinking. Don't pray about it. When I hear people say, pray to give good leaders, that is inspirational. What we need to do more now is do less of inspirational talk and do more of perspirational. Perspiration is about strategy, it's about planning and hard work. So we need to find them, because Nigeria needs a leader now that not only have competence, gravitas, but a lot of energy. And I think the bracket that will deliver that will probably be between 40 and 55. You may be brilliant, you may be competent, but if you are tired, and your ideas will be tired, and you cannot connect to the globalness. So we have to look at all that. But amongst of all the qualities of leadership, I will single out courage. You know, leadership failure is directly tied to courage, failure in courage. If you are not going to be courageous, and when I mean courage, I'm not talking about impunity. I'm not talking about foolhardiness and just facing a trailer or facing a train coming. Yeah, courage dovetails to character, which gives you consistency and capacity. So on top of that, you require discipline. You require character, mental toughness. Toughness so that you see a decision, you pull the trigger. It doesn't matter whether it is your tribe or it is your in-law, your mother-in-law that is going to be affected. So, and I can tell you this has been done over decades in the private sector. So if we have that conversation and we decide that we want to change for good, then we can find the people who will lead. We'll have them in abundance.
In Nigeria?
Yes.
What are youths? I mean, the way and manner they are going.
Yeah.
in which direction or how do you think they can be groomed for leadership?
Now, first and foremost, okay, yeah.
Don't go anywhere.
It's a pleasure.
We'll be right back. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we are still talking leadership. You're joining in this last moments when, in these closing moments. I asked you before we went on break, our youths, the way you see them, how can they be groomed? Are they ready to be groomed? Because you find out that in Nigeria, I'm sorry to say, what it is about is how big my car is, how the private jet I have, my shoe, the name, the label on my jacket. With this kinds of attitude, do you think they are ready? If they are not ready, how can we get them ready? Well,
it has to be a conscious effort. I'm happy you have referred to our moral code. We have to rewrite our moral code. Things like virtue. People below our generation don't quite understand disciplines around patience, disciplines around hard work, preparation. Yes. A couple of them do, and if they don't, then there must be a conscious effort to begin to isolate those ones that have an understanding of what it is, an appreciation of what it is, and begin to groom them and consciously fill them into positions that will begin to affect other people. But we must address this moral code because the way and manner that people become prosperous overnight, it has to be put to question. This is one of the few countries in the world where, if I use Lagos, you see somebody that moves from a slum straight to the upper class residential area, and nobody will ask a question. I'm not saying that miracles cannot happen, but we believe too much in miracles. As I speak with you, the only two international world-class brands Nigeria export is Redeem, and I think is another church. When you talk of the parameters that make up world-class brands, so that tells you something. So we must come back, to consciously putting together programs and putting together structures that can throw up those things. In the private sector, I keep going there. That is being done. The way we elect our leaders, we'll have to look at it again. We've done enough of stomach infrastructure, done enough of sentiment, and then done enough of discouraging people who hitherto could have led us, either because they're not rich. Apart from asking the youth to self-develop, which is very key and important and strategic to personal development, there must be conscious policy to direct the resources of the youth and their energy. So on the practical side, maybe we'll begin to create centers of excellence. We'll create teaching hospitals for management, teaching hospitals for finance, teaching hospitals for agri, teaching hospitals for communication. Just centers of excellence that we can aggregate and then produce a transformation machine for the next era of development, which is a conscious policy government have to put together. We can't continue to do staccato and waiting for things to happen by accident or through prayers, as much as possible. Then as for the youth, you have to learn to communicate. It's very important. And part of that communication is writing. Because you can be brilliant, you can be competent, but all that will be brought to mess if you cannot type a simple email properly, or you cannot understand how to put grammar and syntax together. And you say you're a brilliant manager? No, it cannot happen. Then there is need for you to have a mentor. Every prospective leader must have a mentor. What mentor is so key because it's somebody whose hindsight can become your foresight. That is a guide. And your mentor does not have to be the richest man in your neighborhood. For young people of today, mentorship is about the richest man, yes, the man with the biggest car. No, yes, it's the man who can create value, who can make things happen, who can create things and have a history. There's a story to tell. That's what we are mentorship. Then there must be focus. When I mean focus, not hocus pocus. Because what I see today is a lot of hocus pocus. You need really to focus on the activities that produce outstanding results. And you have to do it consistently, only on the activities that produce outstanding results. Because if you keep doing average things continuously, then you produce outstanding average, and which is not good enough. It cannot deliver. Then you need to be patient, because like the Chinese says, if you are patient by the bank of a river, you watch your neighbor, your enemy float by someday. So you have to be patient, and the Chinese and the Asians understand the virtue of patience.
In these remaining moments, very few seconds, what is the one word you leave with governments, with the youths, with parents?
Well, parents, I think we need to go back to how we bring people, and our moral code have to be revisited. We need to understand and begin to imbibe into our children what success means, what merit means, what discipline means, what procedure means, what hierarchy means. That era of you just come out from nowhere and you become somebody, no, it's not sustainable. That is on the area of parents. Then invest in your kids, because if you invest everything you have in education, then you have a marvelous investment. It's better than having physical investment by way of houses or bank accounts. Just invest in the best possible way in those kids. Then for government, we cannot continue to develop. Some conversation will have to happen along the lines of how do we vision our country? What do we want out of it? How do we close this gap between us and even the likes of developing countries like Rwanda, Botswana? I'm not talking of Asian tigers or Europe, which we reference all the time. We have examples in Africa, and you cannot reinvent the wheel. Just take the template, cut and paste, and get competent people to drive the ship. Then the other leg you mentioned is who?
I say the parents, the government, and the youth.
Then for youth, I've said it, you have to self-develop. You have to understand what meaning to life is. Meaning to life is not the number of times you live or the number of breaths you take, but the moments that take your breath away.
And then I wanted to say, if, for instance, you talked about mentorship,
Yeah.
and somebody says, how do I get a mentor?
Yeah. You have to approach, but there's need for to prepare. A lot of our young people do not prepare. If you come to me and you want me to mentor you, you have to show preparedness. And that preparedness will require hard work, discipline, and procedure. You don't just come to want to mentor because you'll be wasting my time. So I have to see eagerness, I have to see hunger, and I have to see capability and capacity so that I can invest in it, and then look back 5, 10 years down the line and say, this was my product. As for management and development, you have to understand your attributes. You must identify yourself. You have to know what your strengths are. I've said that repeatedly and when I said it, it's for a purpose, so that it doesn't get lost on us. You have to ask yourself one key cardinal question, and it's very strategic. Are you a starter or a finisher? You cannot be a starter and a finisher all the time. So if you're a leader and you recognize that you're a starter, then your second in command must be a finisher, and vice versa. Why we stumble all the time is that we have 2 finishers or 2 starters. You have to make up your mind. If you are not fish, you have to be meat.
Thank you very much, Dr.
It's a pleasure.
I appreciate this. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I kept you waiting.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Thank you for always coming to empower us with information.
It's a pleasure.
We'll invite you once again.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You've learned so much today about leadership. Our youths, you now know that being a leader is not an easy task. But today, Dr. Ken has enumerated the qualities you need to be a leader and the process you have to go through. We need leaders in Nigeria, leaders who have followers, leaders who have vision, leaders who have motivation, leaders who have empathy. Today, we have given priority to materialism. Today, we have given priority to so many things other than integrity. Well, to be a leader, you need integrity. Therefore, I hope in watching this program, you have the understanding what it means to be a leader or to be in position of leadership. And you'll try as much as possible to have the qualities of a leader and not promote tribalism, nepotism, favoritism, so that Nigeria can be a better place for us and the coming generation. Until I come your way another time, my name is Yudi. This is My Factor. Goodbye and God bless.